Welcome to Old Classic Car in this collection of 150 photographs of classic Italian cars. And to begin with, we have a Ferrari 330 GTO down at Goodwood Revival in 2015. Next up, Harry Metcalfe's Lamborghini Countach of course, Harry is of Harry's Garage, the well-known YouTube channel. And there's a review of the same Countach with, I assume that's Harry's Ferrari Testarossa alongside. Somewhat smaller, a Fiat X19 from 1982. This was at the Cape Thorne Classic Car Show this year. That's followed by a Lancia Delta Integrale at the same event. Carfest held at Cholmondeley Castle for several years. This is a Ferrari F40 of the 1980s. Slightly chillier day, this is a Fiat 128 Coupe from 1975. Carfest was also held at Alton Park, and that's where this race-prepared Ferrari Daytona was photographed. Down to the Goodwood Revival, and this is a Fiat 500 Furgoncino van. EU registration, so 1967. Now to Tatton Park and a classic car show there. This is a Lancia Lambda YO4223 from 1926. Lots of red. We have Ron 54, which is 1964 Ferrari 250 LM for Le Mans. Back to the Revival and an Alfa Romeo 308C of the late 1930s straight 8 supercharged racing car. HFO 745, that's a Lancia Aurelia. A review of the same Lancia. Slightly later classic Italian car, this time an Alfa Romeo SZ from the 1980s, 1990s. Very unusual sight over here. Back to the pre-war years now, on YS9249. That is a 1935 Lancia Augusta with a Monte Carlo alongside. To Alfa Romeo now, and an L registration Alfa Romeo 2000 GT Veloce, or GTV. There's a review of the same Alfa. Fiat X19 alongside, and a Delta Integrale parked up in front. Back to Carfest, 250 WMM. That's a Ferrari 250mm from 1953. 132 FXH, that's a Lancia Appia of 1963. Fiat 124 Coupe next from 1972. This was at Tatton Park Classic Car Show in the mid-2000s. Down to the Goodwood Revival again in 2015, and this is a Fiat 8V Zagato from 1953. EU C236C, that's a 1965 Alfa Romeo Giulia Sprint GT. Very pretty little car indeed. Here's a front view of the same car. Very nice indeed. The business end of a Lamborghini Countach. This example in black. So was that the Pageant of Power a few years ago. Slightly damp day at Prescott, 606 UYU, that's 1955 Alfa Romeo 1900C Super. Next up, a Lancia Aprilia from 1938. Sticking with Lancia, FMF 91, that's a 1934 Lancia Astura Tourer. Beautiful car. Review of a Fulvia Zagato Sport. H registration, so 1969, 1970. Down to Goodwood, 1955 Maserati A6 GCS. Little Fiat 500 Abarth. PKO1, a very yellow ISO Griffo. This car built in 1969. This was on the Italian car section at Tatton Park Classic Car Show a few years ago. Here's a review of the same car. with a Stratos replica and various other Italian cars in view. Fulvia, Monte Carlo, etc. And a Fiat 127. A Maserati Quattroporte of the early 1980s. Something of the Hyundai Stella about that, perhaps. The 250 GTO, this is Nick Mason's car. This was at Carfest Alton Park back in 2012 or 13. Front view of the same car. Glorious V12, of course. LSJ 251, that's in 1961, Lancia Appia. Rear view of the same Lancia, quite a rare sight, certainly in the UK. And this is an Alfa Romeo, it's a 1954 1900M, the AR51, powered by a 1.8 litre petrol engine, very much Jeep-like. This magnificent vehicle is a 1956 Fiat Bartoletti Tipo 642 Transporter, as used by Maserati Works Team and Shelby America, etc. Now we've got a bright white Lamborghini Countach. The rear view of an Alfa Romeo SZ. Continuing with the Italian cars, we've got a Lancia Gamma Coupe, T registration from 1978. There's a Fiat Strada at Bath, parked up in the car park at the Tatton Park Classic Car Show in the mid-2000s. The rear view of the same car, a Fiat Strada at Bath 130 TC, one of the hot hatches of the 1980s. Close-up view of a Lancia Fulvia, P-Reg, so that'll be 1975, 1976. There's a Falcon Caribbean alongside. 1963 Ferrari 250 GT Lusso, down at the Goodwood Revival. And turning up at Tatton Park several years ago is TRP 67F, which is an Alfa Romeo Spider 1300. The boat tail Spider. A very muscular Di Tommaso Pantera next. That's followed by a rear view of the same car, Pantera GTS. Slightly more dainty is this G registration 1968 Fiat 850 Sport Coupe. Later Fiat Coupe alongside. This was at Goodwood, I think, back in 2006. Which is an Alfa Romeo support van, I guess you would call it. The GPH 555N, that's an Alfa Romeo Alfetta Berliner, a saloon from 1974, very rare survivor now in the UK. And this magnificent Alfa Romeo is an HC 2900B Mille Miglia. Glorious pre-war Alfa Romeo. That's followed by a Fiat 124 Spider, with badging for Pininfarina on the bonnet. V registration, so that's 1979. A close-up of another Lancia Fulvia, L-Reg, 1973. VMR 247M, that's an Alfa Romeo 2000. GTV, very smart example in maroon. The Fiat Topolino, the early versions had the separate headlights and then they moved to the headlights built into the front wings. This is from 1956. Lots of red, 6 GTP, that's a 1960 Ferrari 250 GT. Very handsome machine. The head-on view now of an Alfa Romeo Montreal, L-Reg, 1973, the Miura alongside it. TTU 302H, it's a fairly rare now Alfa Romeo Berliner, or Saloon, from 1970, left-hand drive. This was at the Prescott hillclimb, L'Avion Bleu. That's followed by an Abarth Coupe, at the Goodwood Revival, I think, in 2006. Another vintage machine now, Fiat. This possibly is a 509S, but if someone could confirm, that would be great. Another couple of, well, there's a trio of Ferrari 250 LMs at Goodwood. If you can add any information to the cars that are featured in this video, please pop a note into the comments. We've got a head-on view now of an M registration 2000 GTV Alfa Romeo. And KMP 996B, that's a Ferrari 330 GT 2+2. The Sunbeam Tiger alongside. Pre-war Alfa Romeo now, UX 3920, which is an Alfa Romeo 6C 1500 from 1929. To the 1980s, or 1970s rather, 308 Dino GT4. And a rather lovely Fiat Dino convertible, E-Reg 1967. Head-on view of the ex-James Coburn Ferrari. Very handsome machine indeed, 337 Yup, 250 California Spider, as owned by Chris Evans at the time. Back to Goodwood, and a Maserati 250F. A later Alfa Spider, G-Reg from the 1980s, with a squared off cam tail and the plastic boot spoiler. Another Lancia Fulvia, in rally car spec, large Corello lamps on the front. Chris Evans again, this time PRX 916B, which is his 250 Testarossa. Chris Evans driving and that TV cook bloke in the passenger seat. There's my old comma, but next to it, the subject of this particular video, a Lancia Flavia 2000 Coupe, slowly dissolving. There's a review of the same car. We clambered on the top of that and you could hear it all crunching beneath my feet. So that wasn't long for this world. 98 OHY, a glorious Maserati 3500 GT. This was at Prescott at La Vie en Bleu a couple of years back. There's a sort of front three-quarter view of the same car. Absolutely lovely. And to Portugal, we spotted this Fiat 127 van, used for advertising something or other, but it's quite a rare car now. And slightly different, a Ferrari 250 GT short wheelbase, the ex-Sterling Moss car, 7 SPA. J registration Alfa Romeo 2000 GTV next. This particular car dates to 1970 or early 71. The Ferrari that isn't red, L registration 365 GTC4 from 1971. Ah, the Beast of Turin. Well worth it. If you go looking on YouTube for the Beast of Turin, you'll see some amazing footage of this particular vintage car. And looking very, very green, a bright green Lamborghini Miura. The 250 GT short wheelbase Ferrari at Goodwood Revival in 2006. A head-on view of a glorious vintage Alfa Romeo, which is a 1756C. There's a review of the same car. This was at Bicester Heritage. Glorious vintage Alfa. This particular Fiat was spotted in the Portuguese Museum some years ago. It's a Fiat 525N from 1929. It had a 6-cylinder 3.7 litre engine. Back to the UK and 7 CLP. This is a Maserati 3500 GT in black. Very swish, very elegant. To Bicester again, and another Lancia Fulvia, this time an HF, being given some welly. It's a 1972 car. SVR 436H, that's an Alfa Romeo Giulia 1300 Ti, the four-door saloon. Continuing with these classic Italian cars, we've got the ex-John Surtees Ferrari 330 GT. Slightly in barn-fine condition, none the worse for it. And there's a rear view of a different car on the banking at Goodwood, 1965 example of a 330 GT. This is an Abarth Coupe. If you can add any more information on this particular Italian car, please pop a note in the comments, always welcomed. HPA 200C, that's a 1965 Fiat 1500 Coupe. Convertible rather. The Delta Integrale at Race Retro, bright red example. There's a late 1970s Fiat X19. The Capri alongside. VOD 42K, an Alfa Romeo 1750 GTV from 1971. Very handsome little cars, I do like those. The rear three-quarter view now of a Ferrari Dino. Looks like an ERA R4D alongside. Head-on view of another Alfa Romeo, this time an 8C2300 Monza. This regularly competes in VSCC, Vintage Sports Car Club events. The rear view of ENZ 288, that's a 1985 Ferrari 288 GTO with the Daytona alongside. Another rear view, this time of Fiat 500 Abarth, or 595S, J-Reg from 1970, early 71. 166 MPH, that's a Maserati Bora from 1972 with the 4.7 litre engine. Lots more classic Italians to come. Here's 880 CTU, this is an ISO Rivolta, Lely Sport. I think that's how you pronounce it. Still at the NEC, another Lancia Gamma of the late 1970s, early 1980s. There's various Lancia beaters in the background. Another Di Tommaso, very brightly painted example on big wheels. Onto the Goodwood banking again with the 911 for company. This is RAS 886, which is 1960 Giulietta Sprint Alfa Romeo. Front view of the same Alfa. Very nice little cars. This was seen down at Malvern many years ago. J registration, it's a 1970 Lancia Flavia Coupe. Looked like a very original car. Possibly a rolling restoration. Is it still on the road? Is it still around? Looks like the dealer sticker's still in the back window. The first of two photos of a glorious silver 250 GT short wheelbase California Spider. Yeah, there's a rear view of the same V12 Ferrari. Absolutely glorious, glorious car. Rear view of a Fiat 600 Racer. Engine propped up in the Abarth style for extra cooling. And the Fiat Strada, another 130 TC. D-Reg in the mid-1980s. A front view of a single-seat Maserati. This was at the Goodwood Revival. I'm not quite sure on the model. Possibly a 4CLT. Can anyone confirm or correct? And a brown Lancia Fulvia. It's the only example I've ever seen one of those in brown. This is a 1975 example. 5 HPD, this lives locally-ish. It's a Ferrari 250 GT, one of two cars like this supplied by Mike Hawthorne's garage back in the day. The Di Tommaso Pantera. This is a Ferrari 250 GTO, this is a 1964 version with a slightly revised bodywork. A glorious yellow ISO Rivolta. This was in the car park at Bicester Heritage. Side view of a 250 LM at the 2015 Goodwood Revival. Lancia Flavia Sport Zagato. A rear view of the same car. A Lambo Miura. It's a slightly damp pageant of power several years ago. Well, I think every pageant of power was slightly damp from memory. This magnificent machine is a Lancia Aurelia Cabriolet, a 1951 car as bodied by Pininfarina, and that's followed by a Martini liveried Lancia Delta S4. It was a hugely successful rally car. A gathering of Ferrari's Alton Park in the foreground is YRD 422C, which is a 275 GTS Spider, Ferrari obviously. That's followed by an Alfa Romeo 2000 GTV from 1972, albeit on a slightly later R registration. Two photos now of a glorious Alfa Romeo 8C2300 Corto Touring Spider down at Bicester Heritage. Obviously this is the rear view, and that's followed by a front view of the same car. Wonderful, wonderful car. Not often you see them in grey. Still a few more classic Italian cars to come. And here we've got another Flavia Coupe, a slightly earlier example compared to the ones we've already shown. Very original car in grey gunmetal metallic. Review at Alton Park of another 308 GT4 Ferrari. CMB 581M, there's an Alfa Romeo 2000 GTV from 1973. Lamborghini Miura in a classic car museum in Portugal. Still quite a few classic Italian cars to come. That includes this wonderful Series 1 Lancia Appia, seen at the NEC Classic Car Show a few years ago. There's that brown Fulvia alongside. Wow, back to Bicester. 167YUJ, that's an Alfa Romeo Giulietta Sprint Speciale with a Jaguar E-Type for company. A G registration Fiat 124 Sport now, so that's a 1968 car. It's a very sunny Tatton Park, I think that was. And down to race retro. We've got an Alfa Romeo Giulia in rally prepared guise. C registration, so 1965. This is an Alfa Romeo GT Junior. Back to that Portuguese museum I mentioned, and the Lancia Stratos alongside the BMW M1. Another Fiat 124 Coupe from the early 1970s. The Ferrari Daytona, very nice car, circa 1972. A slightly modified but wonderful Alfa GTV6, X registration, so 1981 or thereabouts. Getting towards the end now, we've got an OKU 516A, that's a Maserati 3500 GT. An Alfasud Sprint of the 1980s. Review of an Alfa Romeo Montreal. This was my favourite Top Trumps card game car of the 1970s. The little Fiat Abarth 595. Love the wheels. RBY 780K, that's a glorious Maserati Ghibli SS. And to round out this collection of classic Italian cars, we've got a Ferrari 328 GTS parked outside at Race Retro. Slightly muddy, and all the better for it. And that particular Ferrari rounds out this collection of 150 photographs of classic Italian cars. I hope that was of interest. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of this particular collection. Check out the other videos that are on the site, and more videos very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.